Hello and welcome to Creatively Free. I'm your host, Ariel Grace. And this week I have my special guest with us, Nova, my pup. And it's actually really appropriate because this week's episode, in time for the new year for 2021, is going to be all about how can we really be present with our senses and set sense-it intentions for our entire experience instead of as an alternative to setting goals or even core desired feeling states. I'm sure you've heard of Danielle Laporte's core desired feelings. Several years ago, I discovered those. And they really lit me up because I love being aware of and heightened observer of emotions. And as an empath and highly sensitive one, I feel big. And so that really excited me when I first learned about the idea of the power I have as a creational being to set intentions around feeling states and then cultivate them. So, for example, you could choose joy, empowerment, all sorts of words that are resonant with you around a particular emotional state in your being. And emotions are a tricky one. I've studied emotions for quite some time, and there, I think, are over 300 documented emotions. And the way that scientists study emotions is often through observing people's faces and physiological response systems, as well as how people describe emotions. And what's interesting about emotions, though, is underneath them is always energy. Energy is the root of all of it, right? It's always what's motivating and driving us. And really no one experiences emotion the same. Now, the cool thing for empaths and sensitive ones, which according to science that's been around for about 25 years with Dr. Aaron and highly sensitive people, about 20% of the population is highly sensitive, meaning they have heightened area in their brain which experiences their senses differently, is more in tune with empathy, higher bioresonance, and feeling states in terms of your actual physical senses are heightened, sometimes in a way that can feel like a curse for a lot of folks. I know my own physical empathy has tripped me up in that way many times. And I'm going to do a separate video around physical empathy and how to work through your tendencies, your unconscious and sometimes conscious bias or patterns you've learned in life around helping, service, people-pleasing tendencies, and how that relates to physical empathy. And the reason I'm going to do a video on that later is because I know people who have quit their career as a doctor or a chiropractor or therapist. And it was one of the primary reasons that I did not pursue therapy as a kid. I really wanted to be in the healing profession. Like my dad's been in therapy for over 40 years, most of his professional life. But when I was younger, I had developed both, as highly sensitive, I had developed both people-pleasing and a tendency to take on the actual felt sensations of other people's pain, physical pain. And so I'll do a separate episode on that, but there's a lot that can be done. We have much more power than we think we do as empaths and HSPs to create boundaries, to clear through energy, and to bring ourselves back to personal power. So on the flip side of the curse potential around these extra senses is the superpower side. And what I am inviting you to consider and to maybe journal on or do some reflection on as we enter into 2021, closing out a very odd but cosmically wild and interesting, depending on where you stand in life and your lens on life year. And moving into a year that will continue to be many unknowns for a lot of us. What do we have a say in? We always have a say in how we want to be as we walk through life. And we always have a say in what story we tell. And we always have a say in how we want to feel. We get to cultivate our feeling states. And so, what I invite you to try is to think about your physical senses. So, I wore this particular necklace today that my parents gave me because it makes this sort of shaky noise, coin. I don't know if you all have tried different types of sound therapies or listened to particular music and observed how that music can transform your feeling states and transform your being. So the way we listen to, different resonances of sound is a huge opportunity for our ability to work with and cultivate different feelings in us. And for me, belly dancing and this like coin sound, these like metal sounds, has been really grounding and settling for my personal being. So that's one of the things that I can go and turn towards if I'm noticing or observing that I need to be more grounded. And that's just one example, right? And so another example might be with personal presence in general. If we want to feel more present in a moment, one of the tricks that I use and have used for a long time is with our observer and sense and taste specifically. So slowing down our experience and focusing our experience on drinking a sip of lemon water or eating a particular piece of chocolate, noticing the different sensations in your mouth, noticing how it, actually, I don't know if you all know this, but your tongue, everyone's tongue has different, we don't all have the same place on our tongue where we have the same like salty and sweet and sour places on our tongue. So you can move food around in your mouth and even observe like, does this food change in taste as I move it around? And cultivating practices around the senses like this immediately brings us into more presence. It can open up the opportunity for returning to the simple pleasures in life and gratitude. And then it has another kind of compounding experience where it allows us to potentially experience more gratitude and pleasure around that, but then move into a new way of observing time. And so as we become more present through cultivating our sense experience, essentially, we can actually slow down time. We can experience time differently. And I'll probably do a whole episode just on time, but I have always been fascinated and confused by how time is experienced. When you're bored, it slows down. When you're in pleasure, it speeds up. And when you have a heightened way of working with time, you can extend it inside of pleasure so that a moment feels longer. When you're in a really big hurry, you can pause time and be like, I need to get to this place in the next 5 minutes. Come on. So there are so many fascinating experiences around time that is a separate notion, but is related to fully being present through the cultivation of our sense gifts. And then, so our sense when I say gifts, I actually am just referring to your general physical senses right now. But when we extend beyond, the obvious hearing, touch is another one. Boas for me are another fun one where like just soft and light touch on the skin can also be really great for our bodies because it our bodies respond wherever attention goes, energy flows, and our bodies respond to cultivating different sensate experiences. So if you have, as I have, experienced trauma in life, often we've learned numbing techniques that move us away from fully feeling our sensate gifts. And we can get that back by cultivating and working with our bodies and our senses again in gentle, sweet, innocent ways of just enjoying and being with life. This has nothing to do with, toxic sexuality or anything like that. Although your sexuality is simply your creative expression, and there is no differentiation. We've just created that in our culture. So, just being able to cultivate these sorts of things will open you to enjoying your life, coming back alive for a lot of people that have been feeling numb, isolated. This year has really tested people in these ways, and just practicing these sorts of things can really reawaken your physical vessel, your physical being, to your interest in enjoying life through it. Now, extending beyond that, another area is focusing on more of your spiritual gifting, which is often experienced through, seeing like your sight. You might have the ability to see and extend, kind of like a camera lens where you zoom in, and you look at the inner workings of a flower, and then you zoom out and see the broadest experience of life. That's just with your regular eye. Then you can also use your visionary ability to imagine, be in the imaginal space and see imagery. And with any other of your physical senses, you can do extended sort of spiritual experiences of gifting to see what you can feel and experience that's beyond just your body's, physical dimension. And the one that for me comes up as most related to the sensate experience and the core desired feelings is around knowing, around your inner knowing, around your inner feeling state. So extending your experience of your senses, and then noticing and observing how you feel, how your inner knowing adjusts, and how you observe your thought patterns and, maybe new inspirations and ideas that come to you. Like, how does cultivating your senses adjust all of the other parts of your beingness? In any day, in any given moment, we always have choice. And so regardless of if you are on, in a very stressful life experience, I've been a single mom working full time and raising two girls for several years. So I know a little bit about multi, purpose, always having a lot going on. And so being able to cultivate the inner game and the inner feeling states allows you, again, what I'm always going to be talking about is access to freedom. It allows you access to pleasure and joy and observing the meaning, the deeper experiences, regardless of what it is you're doing with your day. So I invite you to cultivate sensate gifts in 2021 and let me know what you choose and where you're headed and what you experience. Thanks for tuning in.